Who is the most valuable dynasty wide receiver right now? And who might be a surprising one inside the top 10? All that more this episode of Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Marcus Mosher and Kate Magdziuk.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for tuning in. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by the Ultimate Football GM app. If you've ever dreamed of becoming an NFL GM and managing your own football franchise, then this game is for you. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up in the app stores. Our listeners get a 100% free boost to the franchise when using promo code Locked On in the game. I am Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. She is Kate Magdziuk. Follow her on Twitter at Kate Magdziuk. Kate, today we are discussing the top 10 dynasty wide receivers moving forward. How are you doing today?
I'm feeling good. I think we're gonna come up with some fun names, and then on tomorrow's show we'll be going through our top 10 dynasty running back rankings,
which is way harder, by the way.
Way harder. My God, I struggle because there are a couple of injuries in the running back column that just make things a little bit more challenging. But Marcus, there's a lot to discuss. So let's just dive right in. What we're going to do. Yeah, we're going to draft these top dynasty wide receivers. We're going to essentially come up with our own consensus rankings. Number one, I think, is atop everybody's consensus rankings. Justin Jefferson, wide receiver one, 23 years old. He's been a wide receiver one in 41% of his games since his rookie season, averaging 20 PPR points per game. Holy crap. 15 games as a top 5 wide receiver in that span. Justin Jefferson is a stud. He's a record breaker. He is a difference maker. And he is doing some really, really special things over the last 2 seasons, despite the fact that, they've had Adam Thielen, who hasn't necessarily been perfectly healthy, but we know that he's capable of being a little bit of a target hog. Mm-hmm. We've seen Justin Jefferson have a really nice target share, almost 30% of the team's targets, 40% of the team's targeted air yards, which leads all wide receivers in the NFL over the last 2 seasons. He's a stud. He has opportunity. Let's roll.
So I made this cute little graphic the other day about CeeDee Lamb and his number of receiving yards in the first 3 years of his career. And he came in at like number 19. I was like, oh, this is really cool. He's starting to really break out. You scroll to the top of that list. It's CeeDee Lamb, by the way, 3,200 receiving yards through 3 seasons. Justin Jefferson through 3 seasons, 4,700 receiving yards. I mean, just
he's a freak.
Bonkers. He's 600 yards ahead of number 2 on the list, and that's Randy Moss with 2 games still left to go. I mean, there's going to be a bigger gap between Justin Jefferson and the number 2 receiver than any other gap in this list. Like, it's just that massive.
It's that massive. And what's interesting is I think heading into this season, a lot of people, I feel like including myself, looked at Justin Jefferson and who I'm going to assume is your number 2 pick as sort of 1A, 1B. Let's hear your number 2.
Yeah, it's Ja'Marr Chase.
Of course.
Funnily enough, the other receiver at LSU. Chase was the one that put up big stats in college. Now it's Jefferson putting up big stats in the NFL. I don't know. I actually feel like Chase has been better. He's missed a few games because of the hip injury this year, but he's averaging 87 receiving yards per game, which is up 2 from last year. He's still scoring touchdowns at about the same rate. There's just a lot of stability here between his talent, his role in the offense, the quarterback. I think Chase is an easy pick at number 2.
I think talent, opportunity, dominance, all of that brings him as the clear-cut dynasty number 2 wide receiver. But I will say what breaks the tier for me is that level of volatility. We've seen a lot more volatility of Ja'Marr Chase than we have between, Justin Jefferson. Jefferson has been the much safer option, though we know the ceiling is sky high with Ja'Marr Chase. He's finished as a wide receiver 3 in 50% of games over the last 2 seasons. So, like, yes, is he has he once put up a performance of more than 50 PPR points? Yes, of course. But like we know that you're not necessarily going to get a breakout game every single week. He's going to win you lots of weeks, but he can lose them for you too. And Justin Jefferson just doesn't have that element as
Yes.
firmly ingrained into his game.
All right. So we got Justin Jefferson at 1, Jamar Chase at 2. At number 3,
Gotta roll back, Marcus, to one of my favorites, AJ Brown, who I just discussed not too long ago as the like the Tyreek Hill to the Jalen Waddle of I don't know what was my metaphor. I don't know, but AJ Brown feels like a discount. Him and my friend Devonta Smith feel like the discounted version of the Miami Dolphins receiving core. He is a top 5 dynasty wide receiver. He is a top 3 dynasty wide receiver. We've just seen him be so dominant. We see him in this offensive system with Nick Sirianni that is, I mean, basically flawless. There's no flaws in this game whatsoever. If they're not getting it done on the ground, they'll get it done through the air. But a staple in this offense has been AJ Brown. He's got the size, he's got that rapport. He's kind of got everything you need. He's got that ceiling. 3
he's got that
games of
dog in him.
100. He's got that dog in him. I've seen the x-rays, man. 3 games of 150 or more receiving yards this year. 2 games of multiple touchdown performances. Like, this guy's a league winner. He is a week winner, and his floor relatively safe.
Yep.
He feels like as long as he's in the system, hopefully they get Jalen Hurts on a long-term deal. This could be something really special for a long time to come.
All right, at pick number 4, I'm going CeeDee Lamb. This one's pretty easy for me. We're going pretty chalk right now. CeeDee's gotten better every single year in the NFL. He's already at over 1,200 yards from scrimmage this year, and that's with Dak missing 5 games. Okay, in his last 9 games with Dak, he's averaging over 90 yards per game. He's scored 6 touchdowns. He's only 23 years old. He's going to be the number 1 receiver there for a long time. I think this is pretty clear for me.
See, I'm kind of relieved, honestly, that you drafted CeeDee there. I love CeeDee Lamb, and I've said I've been extremely impressed with the progress. He's starting to look like that alpha wide receiver. But like when we're looking at in terms of ceiling, in terms of upside, in terms of floor, he's still he's played 1 fewer game than he has all of last season and the year prior, and still only has 2 more top 24 performances than he had in either of those 2 years. It like he feels like a very safe option. He feels like
he doesn't have the ceiling of some of these other receivers because his game is based on efficiency. Like, he's averaging 11 yards per target like over the last 4 games. He's just not going to get 14 targets a game like Justin Jefferson will occasionally,
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, he's 23 years old. There's plenty of time to see him continue to grow in his game. But I'm glad you took him off the board because I do think that there are some other interesting options.
To me, this felt like a consensus top 4. Now it's going to get a little wild. Okay. But before we get into pick number 5, I want to let you know that today's podcast is brought to you by the Ultimate Football GM app. If you've ever dreamed of becoming an NFL GM and managing your football franchise, then this app is for you. You can manage every strategic aspect for your team, play through the season, and lead your team to glory. You're going to be responsible for just about everything, including hiring coordinators, making draft picks, signing free agents. You can even set like how much the hot dogs are going to cost in the stadium. It's pretty incredible. All this in a challenging and realistic game world. The Ultimate Football GM app is completely free and playable offline. Play on the go and as you want, when you want to. Locked On Dynasty listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using promo code Locked On in the game store. That's Locked On. So make sure you check it out today. Download the game. All you have to do is visit the ultimate-gm.com or look it up in the app stores. That's ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM. Start your dynasty today. All right, Kate, you have the floor. Pick number 5.
Pick number 5. I think I'm going to surprise some people here because I'm going to go with a an older model here. But I'm going to go with Stephon Diggs, who, yes, is 29 years old, but you cannot deny the talent. You cannot deny the connection he has with Josh Allen, tied to a quarterback in a tremendous offensive system. And I mean, Marcus, despite the number of weapons in this offense, he's seen almost a 27% target share over the last 2 seasons, has just completely dominated in terms of his upside, ranks 3rd in receiving yards in that span, has had 20 receiving touchdowns since last year. That is the 3rd most among wide receivers. I just think what this team has is too special. Stephon Diggs' role, too special. His skills as a route runner, too special. The quarterback, too special. It's too special. I'm taking him number 5.
A lot of safety there. He's somebody
And
that does
upside, though.
and upside because he does get a lot of targets. Now it's just the age, but I think somebody like Stephon Diggs, his game is going to age really well. For me, at number 6, taking Jalen Waddle, only 24 years old, back-to-back seasons of at least 1,000 yards. He's going to be at like 1,400 yards by the time the season's over. He's already scored 8 touchdowns. One of the most explosive players in the league. He's actually 2nd in the NFL in yards per route run right now, only behind teammate Tyreek Hill. And the quarterback situation has been in flux all year, right? We had Skylar Thompson play 2 games. We had Teddy Bridgewater start a game. Tua's been in and out of the lineup, and it hasn't really mattered. And he's still been super productive. The upside's there. The efficiency is there. He's averaging almost 19 yards a catch this season. I'm taking Jalen Waddle, pick number 6.
I think that's an excellent pick. And that was one of the I've sort of wavered in my number 5 spot between Jalen Waddle. I think obviously tremendous upside and gets that nudge in terms of age. I think Stephon Diggs for me gets that tiebreaker there in terms of safety. But I love the pick. For my next play, I'm going to go ahead and go back to the well of the Cincinnati Bengals. And I'm going to go with T. Higgins, who I think it just really gets lost in the shadow so often behind Jamar Chase. T. Higgins, not even 24 years old yet. He's ginormous, Marcus. Every time I watch the Bengals play and every time I see T. Higgins catch the football, I have to remind myself that is T. Higgins. He is a wide receiver in the NFL, and he is not a tight end because his big body, just everything he does, everything about his game screams size, dominance, and yet he moves like a wide receiver. He has the finesse of a wide receiver. T. Higgins, for all of the volatility that you get from Jamar Chase, who we ranked as our number 2 wide receiver, I think you get just as much safety and upside in T. Higgins, and you get that at a discount, tied to an absolute stunner at quarterback. I think there's so much to like here about T. Higgins, and I feel like we've barely cracked the ceiling.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at his stats compared to like CeeDee Lamb, in their first 3 years of their career, they're nearly identical, and you're getting him 4 spots later. The talent's insane. We know how dynamic he can be. I think that's a great pick. Kate, mine here at number 8. Maybe a little bit of surprising one. It shouldn't be, though. It's Cooper Kupp. I know there's other guys that are a lot younger. If you want to go Deebo Samuel, if you want to pick an Amon-Ra St. Brown, but it's Cooper Kupp. Last year had a ridiculous year, almost 2,000 receiving yards, 16 touchdowns. Kate, he was on pace to have another ridiculous season. Through his first 8 games, he was averaging over 100 receiving yards per game. He was averaging 9 catches. He already scored 6 touchdowns. 7 touchdowns, including the rushing touchdown. He's a little bit older, and that's going to scare people away. He actually turns 30 in June. But I don't see any reason why he can't be like the wide receiver 1 over the next 2 years because of how he's used in that offense and just how good he is. I think getting him at wide receiver 8 is a huge steal.
He's played just 26 games over the last 2 seasons, still ranks 2nd in terms of receiving yards, leads all wide receivers in receiving touchdowns. What's not to like?
He's just a good player.
He's a good player. He's so dominant. He is a focal point of that offense. I think regardless of situation. He's just been the guy, regardless
Yes,
of quarterback. He's been the guy.
he's that dude.
Um, he is that dude. He's got that dog in him.
Two more picks left, and then we're going to recap. But before we do that, Kate, I want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Audible. Audible is releasing a slate of new football podcasts that we're sure you're going to love. That's why you'll be able to find an episode from the league available as a bonus episode on Locked On NFL, narrated by Super Bowl champion and legendary smack talker Richard Sherman and sports broadcaster and rising star Taylor Rooks. The League is an 8-part docuseries about the most bizarre, inspirational, and unlikely stories connected to America's favorite sport, pro football. There's a bonus episode called The Way of the Cowboys, which is an incredible story about how the 1977 Dallas Cowboys brought in Bruce Lee's protege to teach their defense martial arts. Each story offers equal parts history and entertainment and social commentary. Head over to Locked On NFL for a bonus episode of The League, or catch the full series wherever you get your podcast, available now. Audible, get in the game. All right, Kate, your final pick here at number 9 is
Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver for the Detroit Lions. Look, I know Jamison Williams is coming back. I know Amon-Ra St. Brown, though he's had a ton of explosive games, he's also had some down weeks this season. But I still think it's so hard to argue since week 13 of the 2021 season, when he had that absolute league-winning performance. He has been a wide receiver 1 in 50% of games. He has been a target hog. He has been absolutely dominant from a fantasy perspective, averaging just under 20 PPR points per game. The beautiful thing is that with the target share he's been seeing, he's got a relatively safe floor because he is a PPR machine. But we also know that this is an offense that is trending in the right direction.
Mhm.
We know that this team is trending in the right direction. And I talked about it on yesterday's show. It feels like they've found some stability at the quarterback position. I'm not scared of these receiving options anymore. And I think Amon-Ra St. Brown, a prospect I wasn't even super high on coming out of college, is just so freaking clutch. Wide receiver 7 on
Yep.
the year. He's going to continue to dominate.
My last spot. This one's really tough because, man, there's some good players left on the board. Devontae Adams is having an awesome season.
Yeah.
Deebo Samuel's 26 years old, and one of the most fun players in the league. I really thought about putting Chris Olave at this spot because I
Yeah.
love Chris Olave, but the answer is Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of surprised that he lasted this long. Tyreek Hill is
Yeah.
still incredible. This year, despite all the uncertainty at quarterback, okay, he's over 1,600 yards and 7 touchdowns. He's been over 1,300 yards in 3 straight seasons. The only year that he wasn't over 1,300 yards was 2019 when he had high ankle sprain. But 2018, 1,600 yards. 2017, 1,200 yards. He still looks as fast as ever. And I just think he's going to be a top 10 dynasty or top 10 fantasy receiver at least for the next 3 years, if not longer than that. I'm shocked that I got him here at number 10.
I love this pick by you, and I'm kind of bitter and hateful and spiteful at this point. Marcus, I'm going to give you a surprising stat. So everybody was worried about what Tyreek Hill would do going to Miami with Tua. And that was when we knew Tua was the quarterback, right? And now there's all this uncertainty. We've seen, Skylar Thompson in the lineup, but he has already tied. There's still 2 games left in the schedule, and he's already tied his career high for top 12 weeks,
Isn't that
which
ridiculous?
was 7. Absolutely ridiculous. He's actually broken his career high for top 24 weeks as a fantasy wide receiver. Leads the league in intended air yards, 3rd in targets, 2nd in receptions, 2nd in receiving yards. He's the wide receiver 2 on the year. And that's, again, amongst a lot of volatility. We've seen that I think Mike McDaniel and the offense he's running and executing, especially alongside Jalen Waddle, you're going to get a lot of production out of this receiver, even though he's a little bit older. He's that perfect staple for your team that you think is going to make a run at a championship for the years to come.
All right. So just to recap, our top 10 Dynasty wide receivers: Justin Jefferson at number 1, Jamar Chase at 2, AJ Brown at 3, CeeDee Lamb at 4, Stephon Diggs at 5, Jalen Waddle at 6, T. Higgins at 7, Cooper Kupp at 8, Amon-Ra St. Brown at 9, and Tyreek Hill at 10. Kate, I really like the list. The only thing I might switch is Amon-Ra St. Brown and Tyreek Hill, but even then, that's debatable. So I think that's pretty good. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I do hate myself for allowing Tyreek Hill to fall. What
A lot of
gave
good
Amon-Ra
options,
St.
though.
Brown was the edge in terms of age, but
There you go.
I think we did pretty well here. Let's talk about quickly before we close out the show. Let's talk about some of those fringe guys that you mentioned. We just missed out on Chris Olave, one of
Yep.
those names that I think both of us were kind of thinking about with our last picks, along with Devontae Adams. How
Deebo Samuel.
far Deebo Samuel? One name I'm very curious about for you. How far outside of this top 12 is DK Metcalf, or top 10 is DK Metcalf for you right now? 25 years old.
I think after Devontae Adams and Deebo Samuel and Wilson and Olave is where I start to consider Metcalf. So probably talking about 13, 14, 15 in that range. I will say, Kate, I think after Metcalf, there's a pretty big drop. Like once you get past Metcalf and Olave and Wilson, and you get down to the Chris Godwin and Drake London and Pittman tier, I think it really drops off.
I am inclined to agree here, Marcus. I think we've got ourselves a perfect consensus top 10, and I'm excited to see what we can do at running
Yes.
back.
Oh gosh, I want to talk about scary. That one. Whew. Make sure you guys are tuning in for that show tomorrow. We want to thank you for tuning into this show and making Locked On Dynasty your first listen today. Now make your second listen to Locked On Sports Today podcast. Peter Bukowski brings you the biggest stories from around the sports world in 20 minutes. Get the analysis and opinions before anyone else with our local and national experts and insiders. Locked On Sports Today podcast available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. All the same places that you get Locked On Dynasty. Follow Kate on Twitter at Kate Magdziuk. Gotta remember at Kate Magdziuk, not at FF Ball Blast. I'm at Marcus _Mosher. We'll see you guys next time.